Question, do you think Wall Street, in the wake of the recent news of the past 18 months, is in need of more regulation?
That is a good question. There is a fine line between regulation and government imposition on free market economies. Can we use more regulation? Certainly. That's not the proper question. The proper question is, where is enough enough? If we start dictating to free markets and to private businesses what you can and cannot do, we no longer have a federal republic. We no longer have a free market economy. So the proper question then becomes, as I said, how much regulation do we need? Bailouts, certainly we don't need. So we need to regulate as much as it will take just to make sure that that greed that we have seen come about and the problems coming from that greed no longer replicate themselves.
Kane would be spinning in his grave if you could see what's happening to capitalism as we become more socialistically oriented in this country. It's a real fear. Look at what happened to Marx in England. We have a fear in this country because people will not be competitive. This is a consumer-oriented society. And if we don't have that level of consumerism, this country will fail. We must create jobs, and I'm about job creation in order to solve that problem. And I have several schemes that we can create to make that happen. One is the Beach Grove facility right here in Indianapolis. By me serving on the Interstate High-Speed Rail Commission, that facility could be turned into one that could manufacture rail cars. It could employ as many as 750 people. I have talked to people in several venues, including the president of Pratt Whitney, about the possibility of coming here and building. We have the fabrication plants, we have the steel plants, we can do this.
That's right.
If they're not going to address the fact that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, then the whole thing should be scrapped. I would vote against it because if it's not going to address that problem, we're just going to see that problem redevelop again. Also, if a bank is too big and getting ready to fail, then the number 2 bank becomes number 1. So we need to have the liberty of having fair competition. So.
About 30 seconds for rebuttal. Mr. May.
Well, the only rebuttal I really have is the question was on regulation, not on job creation, so I would hope to hear an answer on regulation. More specifically than that, though, in terms of just a final general comment on this, you know, since when did making wrong business decisions and then failing your business become a government issue? If you made a mistake, you got to live up to it. If you screwed up your business and it's failing, I'm sorry, but you made mistakes. That's all I have to say.
I think there's a lot of money being thrown on Wall Street to bail people out. If I don't pay my bills, you get a debt collector calling the next day. I think the government has to wake up to the reality that we do not have the money, we can't keep printing it, and we're sending a debt to our grandchildren and our children that can never be paid back. We're now teetering at $148,000 per person in the next 5 years in terms of debt load.
Mr. Harvey.
Well, the main thing is we have to work within the framework of the business. If you make bad mistakes, then your business is going to lose. So therefore, the next business is recreated, and then it builds up to be number 1. And if they don't maintain, then they end up falling apart.
Okay. Now, the next question is a follow-up to the question regarding Wall Street regulations. Part of the logic and rationale behind the bailouts were the billions and billions of dollars of Americans' money, whether it was pensions, other liabilities that were invested in these banks and in these institutions, and have these institutions allowed to fail. The ripple effect would have had a disastrous effect for the American economy. Based on that premise, Dr. Scott, we'll start with you. As a member of Congress, would you have voted for the Wall Street bailouts?
I would not have. And I'm saying the ripple effect goes around the world. Look at Portugal and look at Greece. They put their money into bonds that were floated here in America in order to carry out mortgages. Those mortgages failed. They failed because people didn't have jobs in order to meet their mortgage payments. So the ripple effect is not just here in the United States. If you look at the euro to the dollar, it's trading at 133. It's down from 145 just a month ago. Or look at the pound. We are at the center, at the epicenter of this entire debacle. And it is due to our economy, it has to do with the jobs we've sent overseas, and a weakened dollar.
Mr. Harper.
I would vote negative on that bill. Again, do not need to be supporting businesses that's going to fall apart. That's what they went into business to create themselves, to build themselves up. We don't get bailed out if we miss our payments. So therefore, businesses should be faced with the same restriction as we do.
Mr. Mayor.
I would vote no. First of all, it's unconstitutional. Second of all, your business made a mistake. You know, Main Street businesses make a mistake. They can't go to the federal government and say, please bail me out, I made a mistake. They get laughed at. You know, aside from that, here's the practical application of what they did. The banks went to the federal government and said, we need to loan more money because we need to stimulate the economy. And so the federal government said, why, of course, let's give you some billions of dollars. So what they did is they went to every taxpayer and they said, give me 10 of your dollars so I can give your $10 to a bank so that they can take your $10 and loan it right back at you at an interest rate. You know, where's the common sense in that? How about you let me keep my $10, I can put it into a bank, earn interest off of it myself, and then maybe reinvest that into the economy. That's what they should have done.
And now we're going to do a 30 seconds for rebuttal. Dr. Scott.
Well, I always think of Bernie Madoff and the icon of Ponzi schemes. What people are forgetting is that we had a lot of philanderers and pretend people behind this Bojest operation that's been going on for a while. It's not just the mainline bankers, not just the mainline companies, but it's all those people who were pimping off of the system that had to be dealt with. And Bernie Madoff was the biggest pimp out there.
Mr. Harmon.
Again, it goes back to, I believe, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, where the banks were forced to give high-risk loans, knowing that they couldn't retrieve it, and then they went to the government and asked for more money, and they gave it to them, which inadvertently affects everybody else who are actually paying their bills.
Mr. Ray.
Like I said before, it boiled down to greed. These people got greedy. Other people that couldn't afford homes wanted to live in their nice, big, fancy homes, probably couldn't even furnish it. Then they didn't even just use some common business sense. They said, well, I can put no money down. I can take an exploding arm mortgage that I can pay 1% interest rate. You know, what happens in the future? My parents taught me to save money, be fiscally responsible. That's what we should be returning back to. By bailing businesses out, no one will join with this responsibility on themselves.
All right, gentlemen, final question direct question on finance. This question is based on one sent from Mark Meadows of Goshen. With push tax cuts set to expire, and the administration seemed ready to let some of those tax cuts expire, what would you do to lower taxes and ease the burden on taxpaying Americans, but at the same time addressing our growing financial obligations and debt and deficits? And Mr. Harmon, we'll start with you.
Well, hopefully, first of all, we get the majority of the House and the Senate again, and we go ahead and resubmit and try to get the tax cuts back in play for us. What we need to do is lower taxes to give everybody else the buying power. I know the government right now is putting on the table a VAT tax, which is an area we do not want to go to, especially with the personal tax on top of a VAT tax. So in order to stop that, we're going to have to get the majority of the House and repeal it.
Mr. Ray.
Look, the current tax code is written by lobbyists for lobbyists. Businesses are out there. They're not making decisions based off of what is best for my business, what is best for my consumer or my product. They're saying, what is the tax implication of my decision? That's the wrong way to make a business decision. What they should be doing, and what would I do to lower taxes? First off, we need to remove the capital gains tax. It's set to expire at 28%. You either keep it at the current 15 or you lower it to 10. Here's the practical application of that. Business owner can now go out and buy a piece of equipment. Well, now they got to hire somebody to run that piece of equipment. So now that person is making an income. They're out in the economy, spending money, reinvesting in the economy. They can feed their family. We need to provide a great economic condition for small business owners and small businesses to flourish. They are the economic engine of this nation. Big businesses are not. They employ the most people, pay the most taxes, and drive our nation's economy. That's what we should be looking at. And the final note, we need to move away from a tax on production and start taxing on consumption. That's when we will even the playing field.
Dr. Scott.
Whether you have a flat tax, a round tax, or a square tax, we're going to have taxes. Businesses are going to pay more taxes, especially as the economy improves. The question becomes, how much of a tax burden should they bear? You talk about